So Blind Willie Johnson is one of those amazing guitar voices that comes from Texas. And just like there was a Mississippi cotton crop, there was a Texas cotton crop. And he comes from this area, I believe he was born in Marlin, Texas, and lived in Beaumont, Texas for most of his life. And again, he was a street singer, but he was also a recording artist. Columbia would come by and pick him up. I think it was Columbia, maybe it's Vocalion, but would come by, pick him up, take him to the studio, he'd record, he'd come right back and to that corner. And many people count Blind Willie Johnson as an influence, even if they've never heard his music, because it was just that prevalent. Blind Willie didn't necessarily write all of the stuff that he recorded. He used some of the hymn books and some of the songs that were common in his time, but everything he did, he sort of made it his own because he had that unique way of playing the guitar. Sometimes you'll hear him solo, sometimes you'll hear him with a woman that they identified as Evangeline Johnson, who we've thought for years and years was his wife, but I think it was just a woman who used to sing with him. And sometimes he'll have this really kind of a driving one chord kind of rhythm, you know, and he has a very, very rough voice. Well, that voice, I found out too, was an affect that a lot of street singers would take on, because that rough voice, that gravelly voice, would travel a lot further than a normal human voice. And so you could sing on one block and maybe be heard for a couple of blocks because of the interaction between your guitar and that really rough, gravelly voice that we've come to associate with Blind Willie Johnson. Blind Willie Johnson, like Fred McDowell, and Fred McDowell is a generation or so later, but he used a slide as well. I hear he used a pocket knife, and I believe it because sometimes you can hear this really loose and free hand, even freer than you get with a slide, but I have not mastered by any means the pocket knife or the razor blade on the guitar, so I just stick with my slide style. But his music is amazing in its freedom, in its emotion, and its wildness. It's a different way of playing in open D tuning than someone like Fred McDowell or any of the other artists that we're going to talk about in this tuning. So in this case, we're going to take a look at a song called Jesus is Gonna Make Up My Dying Bed. Some people might remember this from Bob Dylan's first album. I think he covered it. And we'll talk about another famous cover of this song. But it is, depending on who's doing it, the idea is that Jesus can make dying easier. Jesus is going to make up my dying bed because he has come before and he has prepared the way so that your death is not something to fret over, but he has paved the way to make it easier. Strangely enough, this song begins with that receiver, that telephone shows up in this song again. In the lyric, ever since we got married, we haven't been a minute apart. He put the receiver in my hand and true religion in my heart. I can call him up easy. Well, I can call him up easy because Jesus gonna make up my dying bed. Blind Willie Johnson.